This program contains coarse language.
I was working in Gympie as a police officer, and one afternoon in early 2014, we were called to Kirra's house in Beenham Valley Road. She had called 000 and told us that her partner had gone off. So we went out there, lights and sirens, code 2, which is urgent, priority, get there quickly. We're hearing all these details on the police radio about what Kirra's partner's like. We're like, well, this guy's serious. He's got some history. What are we walking into here? We pulled up at her driveway and she was standing outside. And she just said, look, I'm sorry, I shouldn't have called you. It was just a mistake. It's all fine now, it's all sorted. He's gone. I looked her in the eyes and said, has he threatened you? No. Has he hit you? No. Do you need us to help? No. I felt helpless. I felt, is this what being a police officer is? You get called out to these things and you can't really do anything all the time. She was adamant she didn't want anything else done. So we basically had to drive away. A few months after I got the call out, I was sitting in the station doing paperwork at Gympie. And, one of the other officers, one of my mates, stood up and just said, did you hear Kirra died? I just remember sitting going, what? Like, are you serious? And just felt the weight of it. I felt really, really bad for the whole thing.
This was a young mother of 4 children, 27, very healthy woman who has presented to a hospital brain dead on arrival with multiple impacts to her body. I think my biggest question is why has nothing been done?
I have a lot of questions about Kirra's case and a lot of questions about Kirra's death. I think my number one question would be, how could this happen? Why hasn't it been taken further? Why has nobody been arrested? Why hasn't this gone to court? I don't understand.
Something's been not right about it from the beginning. No one's charged 6 years down the track. What was done to her was brutal. It was disgusting.
It just crushed me. Because in all honesty, back then, I thought that I had done it. I tried to speak to the police about Kirra's death a handful of times. No reply. One callback of a private number and a voicemail that had no number to call back. Until last year.
Merry Christmas, ever beautiful baby. Oh.
Kirra was not submissive. She was a firecracker.
Go away so you're getting his bottom on.
She didn't take things lying down. She was happy, cheeky, sassy, very stubborn. Always had to have the last word. And that's how she always was. Pretty independent little soul.
She was one of the most fun people I think I've ever met. She really was the life of the party. So every time she showed up, it was kind of like, okay, Kirra's here, the fun's really gonna go down now.
She just shone. Most people would generally say that when they met her. They would either gravitate to her and fall in love with her as well or clash with her. And it was kind of one or the other because she was so authentically her from a young age.
Have a look at it.
See, we're all clean now.
She loved the idea of growing up with her children and watching them have a life.
Okay, we'll go have some dinner.
I think that's the saddest part of all of this, that her children have to grow up without her.
Kirra had been with her new partner, who we're calling Jason, for 10 months when she died. Jason had multiple convictions for domestic violence and had been in jail. Reading the summary of the police report in the autopsy, there was just no mention of any domestic violence relationships between Jason and Kirra. And I would have expected it to be in there. There had been previous calls for service to that address. You've got 105 bruises on Kirra's body. You know, she had massive head injuries, which ultimately caused her death. Her partner told the paramedics that she had an overdose of antidepressants. The toxicology showed only therapeutic levels. So they're the mysteries of this case, and they're the questions we need answered.
I can remember a small article that came out pretty soon after her death. Woman from Wolvi, flown to hospital, died, head injuries, police are investigating. That's pretty much all it was.
You look at other suspicious deaths and there's plenty of coverage about them, but this just seemed to go by the wayside and she was forgotten. This case has been haunting me because I feel for the victim, I feel for her family. So when I left the police, I thought, now I could do something about it because I'm not a police officer anymore.
Jamie approached me and said, look, I want to start a podcast. Are you in? I was good mates with Jamie. I said, yeah, sure.
Tom had just recently left the police as well, and he was actually a journalist by trade, so I knew he would be more experienced than I would be.
And he was like showing me how it all works, and, you know, this is this feed here and this bit here, and, you know, like thinking about investing in a shotgun mic. Do you reckon a shotgun mic? Do you reckon lapel mics? Like, what do you reckon? I was like, I've got no fucking idea what you're talking about, man.
We had no idea how to podcast, but we did have some experience in investigating through our police background. So we wrote down all the names of the people we wanted to speak to and went from there. When we started this podcast, we thought maybe the best place to start this would be with the person who knew Kirra the best. And that person's obviously her mum, Alison.
I could tell that this is a woman who was obviously in a world of pain and hasn't received closure. She needed someone to tell her what had happened to her daughter.
Hey, Alison.
Then and only then could she move on with her life.
It's good to see you.
Gotta hug ya.
How have the grandkids been?
Pretty good, really.
Yep.
Yeah.
Alison, she's quite articulate, she's smart. Yeah. You know, she's got a nursing background, she knows what she's talking about. Yeah.
Had them here the whole time.
But she told me very clearly that she would have pulled the pin on life because her whole world crumbled if it wasn't for her grandkids.
You have milk? Kirra was my only child. I wasn't really in the position to have another one. I was basically single the whole time, just the two of us. The first tooth.
Oh, you've kept it?
In there? Yeah.
Wow, that's amazing you kept that.
I was always a bit of a hoarder. I always thought we were a team. Kirra, she would always say to me, Mum, we're not we. We're, you know, you and me, we're not we.
Who's going where? You two. Mum, where's Mum going?
She has an internet relationship.
That's fantastic. How long's it been going?
About 6 months.
Kirra and Alison were so close, and they also weren't like mother and daughter. They were more like sisters or more like friends.
Quite a lot they were referred to as a TV show. Remember the TV show Gilmore Girls?
And this is your only daughter?
This is my only child. Pregnant only daughter.
How would you describe her? What kind of sort of mum she be?
She's eccentric. And she's loving. It's not an appropriate word. And she's consistent. I think is the best word. It's just consistently nuts. Consistently there.
Yeah. And she had a pretty, like, turbulent teenage years.
She was going okay. You know, I'd never raised a teenager before, but I thought she was going okay. But then her friend died, and Kirra just lost it.
So she actually struggled with mental health?
She did, yeah, she did. There is a history of bipolar in the family. I was diagnosed when I was a teenager, and Kirra got it too. When she met her husband-to-be, it all... yeah, it turned around. It was like, right, I've got everything that I've always wanted in life.
She told me about this waiter that she'd met, and they were dating now, and she thought she was already in love with him and they wanted to get married. And I did actually notice how much more settled Kirra was.
That was her wedding day. She got married in Orange on a Wednesday.
She was quite young.
She was 18.
And she was happy when she got married?
Yeah, she was delirious.
Yeah.
She'd only ever wanted to have a big family. She didn't like being lonely. She didn't like being the only child.
Oh, look.
She did get pregnant really quickly, and it was just the happiest that I had ever seen her. She became serene, and serene is not a word I would use to describe Kirra. Never, not in any way, shape or form. They moved to Queensland not long after they got married.
What about finding the place at Wolvi? Because you told me that was like a massive part of their life.
Yeah, that was the white picket fence thing. And she fell madly in love with it, and she was going to have it, and that was that.
Yeah. Okay. Hey guys, I'm Jamie.
And I'm Tom. Last year, this podcast was just an idea. And as we sit here now putting together our first episode, we couldn't have imagined the crazy journey this project would take us on. The very first episode Jamie and I did, we had no idea what we were doing. We went to this studio down the Sunshine Coast. We kept getting pulled up by the audio engineer going, "Oh, do that again. Levels weren't right, do that again."
So I'll punch you off the back of that line. Just give me a second, I'll skip you first.
We ended up being there for like 6 hours or something. And we got 22 minutes of audio.
Someone's been hiding. Someone's been lying. But there's a storm coming. And they can't hide forever.
Oh, that's it, man.
And we listened to it in the car. I think we were just looking at ourselves and we went something like, "Oh, well, guess it'll have to do."
Do you want me to roll the take?
One more, please, sir.
I gave it a 5-star review and said the boys are awesome and best podcast on the internet.
We need you to understand how this narrative has developed. Because it's complicated and it's dark. It is a rabbit hole that we've gone down to make sure Kirra's death is not forgotten.
I think the stress of 4 children wasn't easy on the marriage. The lack of what she felt she was missing became too much after a while, and she went looking elsewhere. Not the right thing to do, but what do you do? So, unfortunately, she went looking in the wrong places.
Kirra called me in May of 2014, and she told me that she'd met someone and he was a dad at the school. And she told me that it wasn't a great situation because it was her best friend in Wolvi's husband. And she said she felt guilty, but also she was really happy in the relationship that she was in, and that for that reason she didn't regret it.
Kirra's marriage disintegrated. So she and her husband separated, and then at some stage, I'm not sure of, the new partner moved onto the property.
For legal reasons, when we were making the podcast and now, we can't use Kirra's partner's real name, so we're calling him Jason. I just wanted to get a better understanding of who Jason was, who he is, what he was like, what he is like. So we're on the way to meet KATY. KATY is Jason's ex-partner. She was with him for about 13 years.
I was 16 when I met him.
And he was like...
18, 19.
Look at you guys!
Where'd you meet Kirra?
Kirra I met at the local primary school.
Yeah.
We have children of similar ages, and that's how we met. Yeah, we got along like a house on fire.
Yeah. When you noticed that there was something going on between Jason and Kirra, what happened that night or that day?
We were at Kirra's house, sitting in her lounge room area, and then I've noticed Kirra put her feet on his chair, and then he's put his hand down and started rubbing her feet and looked at her affectionately and all the rest of it, and I'm sitting there observing, and I'm just like, oh, fuck. Pennies dropped. Like, yeah. I was upset. I was hurt.
I felt like my trust had been stomped all over.
What was he like with you? Was he restricted?
Vicious.
Yeah.
Probably the only way you can explain it is vicious. I wasn't allowed to be on social media. I wasn't allowed to speak to any of my old friends. My mum tried reaching out a couple of times, but every time that happened, he'd cause an argument, get extremely violent over it and all the rest of it. So to keep my family safe, I stayed away from them and didn't contact them.
Despite Kirra forming a relationship with Katy's partner, Jason, they both decided to keep that friendship going. And I think that gave Katy an out almost, you know, like she'd been wanting to escape that relationship for a long time. But, you know, Kirra shacking up with Jason gave her that opportunity to finally leave that.
My brother is charming. He tells them they're beautiful, he's spontaneous. He's all those things that you really, really like when you first meet a dude. It's like Dr. Jekyll, Mr. Hyde, and it's weird because he can just do the worst things to people and then throw puppy dog eyes and they literally forgive him and somehow feel sorry for him. It's incredible.
The first time I met Jason, which was at Kirra's house, we sat and had a conversation down in the yard, and some of the things that it told me, I just thought, no, this is not good. But then she was happy. And her happiness was everything, you know, because when she wasn't happy, it wasn't good. So I let it go, and I didn't know what was going on. If I'd known, I would have been up there with an army.
Everything seemed quite lovely, and again, I hadn't met him, I didn't know much about him. He sounded lovely on the phone. And then he was there for every time we were on the phone. It was just let her have a phone conversation with her friend, mate, like, back off. As her gay best friend, I would get quite homophobic messages, which I knew Kirra was not homophobic. She was my best friend. And it would be from Kirra's phone, insinuating to be from Kirra, but Kirra could spell. It was the start of what, in hindsight now, of a lot of domestic violent relationships where the partner starts cutting off ties of close people in her life.
According to the interviews I conducted from the neighbours, Kirra and Jason were fighting every day or every other day. It was always an argument or a commotion going on there. You and Kirra were pretty close?
Yeah.
What kind of relationship did you have?
We were best friends. He got his hooks into us so quickly. It just went from bad to bad fast. Kirra'd come over as usual, you know, a couple of drinks of a night or of a weekend or something, and he'd start messaging her. He'd step on his front veranda and yell at her, and we'd just yell back at him, and after about 3 weeks, she'd just get up and go home. As soon as he messaged, she'd be gone. I'd go over there and I'd get the death stare.
She just turned into like an empty shell, more or less. It was pretty painful to see how much of a difference he made to her.
She couldn't get out of it. He had control of her money, her house, her children, everything. Didn't know what to do to help her. You know, you can only call the police so many times.
How often would you call the police, you know?
I think I called the police probably 4 times.
Kirra actually told me that he had been in jail a couple of times during their relationship, and that one of the reasons that he'd been in jail was because he'd actually hit her, he'd beaten her up. It's still hard for me to talk about because I'm so gobsmacked by it. This isn't the kind of thing that Kirra would ever have stood for.
Her car was smashed up, and I said, what happened to your car? And she said, oh, I had to get out of here in a hurry, so I didn't stop to open the gate, I just went through it.
She called me one day. She was hiding in the bathroom. I said, how are you? She goes, yeah, I'm good. I'm like, no, you don't sound like your normal bubbly self. And I said, what is wrong? She goes, no, I just wanted to hear your voice. Like, he's hitting you again, isn't he? And she said, yes. She said, I've told you, you know what you need to do. Go to the police and tell them. They know his history. Tell them that he is being violent to you. Remove him from your house. That's your house, not his. Get rid of him. And she always defended him. I can't. I love him. I can change him. And it's like, sweetie, I tried. I tried for 12 years to try and change him. He's not going to change for anybody. It's a vicious circle.
Be aware, this episode is someone telling their story of extreme domestic violence. It mentions sexual, emotional, and physical abuse.
I got a fairly good grasp of domestic violence through my time in police. It was only a short time, but I've been to a lot of situations. It's almost amazing how common it is. It's just crazy. One thing I did learn, though, was why a partner doesn't leave straight away, like why the victim doesn't just get up and leave.
It's very difficult to understand because it's a manipulation.
And Katy basically said, you know, you're proud. You don't want to make that call to say, look, I'm in trouble. I need help here. I can't do this on my own.
You didn't have a license or a car or money or...
Isolation.
You know, means to get out, so...
Isolation is one of the biggest key factors.
Katy agreed to take me back and show me where the worst of the abuse happened at the hands of Jason. Hearing what Katy went through gave me a better understanding into what Kirra might have experienced.
So how do you feel coming back to this place where you used to live, in that shed?
Terrified, gut-wrenching. I feel sick.
Really?
Something's turning.
Well, you're in control if you need to tell us.
It's okay.
This is the shed. This is where you lived.
Yeah.
Can we get closer? You up for it?
Yep. Yeah, I can do this. I can do this.
So what was it like when you were living here?
When we were living here, I made it as homely as I could.
Yeah.
Made a lounge room, makeshift kitchen. There was a plumbing hole to make a shower, bath shower, so we did do that.
So you could have showers and stuff?
I wasn't allowed to. If I did, I got abused because I was sprucing myself up for whoever I was cheating on him with, but I wasn't cheating. This is a good example of how he was very Dr. Jekyll, Mr. Hyde, because this is the behind closed doors. This is where he was a completely different person. Because, you know, on the outside, he's all lovey-dovey and being nice and kind, and then back in here, it's getting threatened, you're going to get killed, getting choked out, getting smashed around the place, having to protect the children, walking on eggshells. I was going to the toilet. This is where he had me trapped. He was standing here telling me, you're not getting out, you're not getting out. He's lunged at me, grabbed me by the throat. He's smashing my head into the ground while punching me in the face. I'm losing consciousness and I've just grabbed all over the floor, and the first thing I found was a piece of ceramic toothbrush holder, and I stabbed him in the side of the neck. That's where that happened.
You okay?
Yeah, I'm okay. So in here, a lot of violence did happen.
So you're happy to leave it behind?
Very happy to leave it behind, because how far I've come and what my kids have now. Is a far better life than this.
I finished the interview with Katy and went for like 2 hours. Got the recorder and I just started talking to it, and I just remember thinking, fuck, like, are you serious? Like, people go through this? The reality of what I'd got myself into doing this podcast had really hit home that, you know, I'm in deep here.
It's disgraceful how this sort of behaviour exists in our society. The sad truth is, we probably all know someone who has been or is in a domestic violence relationship.
It is overwhelming, like dealing with people's pain of the story and dealing with the workload. Tom and I both had some mental health issues, anxiety and whatnot.
I thought, I've really got to step back from everything that's happening here, because if I don't, I'm going to go down a pretty dark path, because I'm predisposed for that sort of stuff. So that was the reason why I took a step back.
Although Tom is very strong, BVR has brought some things up in him that he's going to take some time to work through.
He made the right decision, I think, because he needed to look after himself. Kirra and Jason were together for about 9 months.
It had gotten to that point where Kirra had really been brushing off the minimal impact it was having to her being in a violent relationship.
We had grave fears for the safety of the children because of the situation Kirra was living in. Kirra's husband was able to get legal support to take the children, and I moved up from New South Wales to assist him with taking care of them.
Kirra had rang me and was very hurt, was very angry. And the conversation I'd had with Kirra was, this is no longer just about her safety, this is about her children's safety. And I'd said, what will it take for you to understand how serious this is? She responded with, you're blowing this out of proportion, fuck you, and hung up the phone.
She was desperate. She was heartbroken. It's really hard to take someone's kids away from them. But we had to do what was best for the children, and I was going to go back for her. Just didn't have time.
Jason told the ambulance, paramedics and the police that Kirra had taken an overdose of her antidepressants and that she was unresponsive.
Considering the marks on her face, it seems to me that she was bashed into the ground continuously, face first.
I'd said to Alison, I know this is confronting, but I want to take a photo of her. We might need some evidence.
The system has failed her. He has a history. How can you not see that?
There's a lot to be levelled at the police about what sort of priority was this getting.
In July this year, a date was finally set for the coronial inquest. So it's taken 6 years, but it's finally happening. Jason's account was that there was a fight between his sister and Kirra.
Where did you hit her? On the side of the head. I honestly don't know if it was 3 or 4 times. She sprung up really fast.
She kept saying to me, but I killed her. And I said, no, you didn't.
What did you hear when you were cutting firewood?
Like, I can remember the words he said clear as day still. It was, I fucked up. I don't know what to do. I need help.
That's when we started to get to a bit more of the media part of the narrative. And I don't know if it's the truth, but it's definitely more than we'd ever heard before.
If you or someone you know is affected by any of the issues raised in this program, please contact the following services. Lifeline 13 11 14. 1-800-RESPECT. 1-800-737-732.